Now that we've completed our first design in HTML and created our first page structure, we're going to have a look at creating a new one. Now, we talked about before about what are called semantic elements in HTML. 3 schools will actually outline to you what the semantic elements are. Now, we know that many websites contain HTML code like the div ID equals nav, div class equals header, div ID equals footer, to indicate navigation header and footer. In HTML, there are some semantic elements that can be used to define different parts of the web page. So rather than having to do div ID equals article, they've actually shortened it to just article, aside, details. Some of the main ones that we use are things like footer, header, main, nav. You could use section, summary. Aside is a very common one for the details that go on the right hand side. So let's have a look at designing a web page that uses some of these semantic tags. Here's an outline of a page that we could create. You notice that there's a header, a sidebar, there's some content, and a footer. Now, some of these need to be updated to meet the new semantic elements. So footer is there, header is in our list. We also have sidebar, but it's actually called aside. And then we've got content, which we could actually call main. So we're going to create this using semantic elements in Adobe XD. Now, to do this, the first thing we need to do is create a new artboard. So we click on the little page for an artboard, and on the right hand side it gives us the different elements we can create. We're going to use a web page that is 1920 by 1080, and then what we want to be able to do is create our elements in there. So the first thing I do is grab the square, and I'm going to mark out the very first part of my page. Now we know it's going to be 1024 wide, so if you wanted to, you can just draw out a square and then go to the top right hand corner and put in 1024, and then we can set a height. At the moment it's 600, so I might actually extend that to 800 and press enter. It doesn't have a colored background. For the very first container that I like to use, so all my div IDs sit inside container, which encompasses the whole page, I like to use a gray color. So I'm just going to go to fill, and then I'm just going to pick a very light gray and press enter. Now, once we've done that, we need to put some text on the page so we know what this is. So I grab the text tool, and in this section down here I put in the hashtag, and then I can put in its name. Now we know that container is going to be a div ID equals, and I'm just going to turn that to a fill color of black. Okay, now when we look at our page layout, we've got a header at the top, and the header has a height of 200, and we're using 1024 wide at the moment because the header goes right across the page. So let's design that with that width. So once again, I'm going to draw a box, and it's going to be 200 high. So I've gone out to 1024, and I just need to move it down to get to 200, and then I release that, and I need to give it a fill color so I know what I'm working with. I'm going to pick a yellowy color. And I always try to go for soft colors as well. Now this needs a tag, so once again I'm going to grab the text tool, click in the middle, I'm going to put a bracket this time and just put header. Now the difference is this is going to be a semantic tag, which means I don't need to declare the hash in my CSS file, where with container I'm going to have to go hash container, because this is going to be a HTML structural tag. The next part of our design was a sidebar on the left hand side here. It had a height of 500 pixels and a width of 240 pixels. So let's draw that. So let's give it a height of 500 and a width of 240. Now remember, if you can't quite get it right, you can always go up the top and type in 240 and then the height of 500. Then it will snap into position. Then we can give it a color. I'm going to use a greeny tone, so a nice little soft green, and we'll give it its name, aside. Because remember that we're going to use the HTML semantics, and if we go through we can see aside there. Grab my text tool, come in again, and put the aside command in. Then to the right hand side I was going to have my content. Now my content was going to have a height of 500 and the remaining width of the page. So you can put it in the direct corner here and stretch it out, and roughly we know that's 500 at the bottom, which helps us snap it into position. But if you've got padding or margins or breaks, you can actually put those margin breaks in. So if you were going to have a margin, we can put those into our design. But at the moment I'm going to go out to the main structure to keep it simple, and then I need to put a color in the middle here, and I'm going to go with soft blue. And once again its name is going to be main. And the last thing I need to put in is my footer. Now my footer is going to be 120 pixels high. So once I come back here and I draw the footer in, you notice that the container now is too small, and I'm looking for 120 pixels high, and then I'm going to give that a color. So once I go to the fill, I can pick any color out of this palette. So I'm going to pick a very light purple, and you can see the size isn't quite there, it's a little bit big, so let's just fix that. Now to get our container we need to see all our elements on our page. Now we know that the first rectangle that we drew is right behind here, so I can just select that and then drag that down a little further and put that into its position, grab the movement tool and slide that down. Now once everything's in place I can then put the text in, which is going to be footer. And now I've actually laid out all the elements of my design. The next thing I need to do is start giving it some attributes. So I need to give it some sizes again. So once again, all I want to do is translate the size of the boxes. So 1024 by 200. So when I grab my text tool, I can come over here and go 1024 pixels by 200 pixels. So when a developer comes in, they would like to make this, they can actually easily grab the sizes and build the web page in their CSS. Now we can actually use the elements that are built in. So I've got some fonts here that I've already created. And as you can see, it's easy just to change all the elements to their correct size by using this. To make one, you just basically create the font, click the plus sign, then you can rename them if you'd like. That just makes your life a little bit easier. And as I know it's only cosmetic, it's just a little bit easier to do it all at the end. Now as I go through and select these, if I push V it selects the selector for me. I can just go Command C, Command V, bring that down, put it into position. Select the box size, we know it's 500, and then I can just change that to 500, and I can do this for the rest of the elements. Now once we've finished all our attributes of our artboard, we may change the name of it, so we can put example design 02, and now we can actually go create this in a HTML document and a CSS document. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, also have a look around for other useful web development tools.